On the 15th of May 2011, police attended the scene of an accident in Brisbane, Australia. It appeared that a man had fallen from the 7th floor of an apartment building. As they questioned witnesses, it became apparent why. The man had been engaging in an activity that had, very recently, been prominent in Australian news, and rapidly gaining popularity on the internet. The man who had fallen from the balcony had been planking. Planking is an activity that consists of lying face down and immobile, usually with one's face against the ground and one's arms by one's side. It is often done for comedic effect. People either plank in public places to see what reactions their unusual behaviour might provoke from passers-by, or in strange or amusing locations to document and share online. Activities similar to planking have been traced back to as early as the 1980s. One of the earliest recorded instances is found in the 1984 yearbook of Woodway High School in Edmonds, Washington. Planking was a fad amongst a small group of students at that high school. It began when two boys were walking through a park, came across a baseball game, and decided to lie face down nearby to see if they could distract the players. This activity struck them as so amusing that it soon became a popular activity among their friends. They called it face dancing. Many years later, in 2007, two schoolboys in England came up with a similar game. They and their friends began to share pictures of themselves lying face down in unusual places, much to the puzzlement of passers-by. One of the group created a Facebook page, spreading the game beyond their immediate friendship circle. They called it the lying down game. The first people to refer to the activity as planking were a group of friends from Adelaide in Australia. With no knowledge of face dancing or the lying down game, they came up with the idea of lying face down in public places as a harmless prank, and started a Facebook page to collect photographs of people doing this in 2008. Over the next few years, planking became steadily more popular, helped greatly by reports on the craze in the news. Some outlets published stories about planking in general, commenting on how swiftly the activity had gained popularity. However, planking also made the news when it went wrong or when it was done in a particularly spectacular fashion. At the same time, pictures of planking posted on social media would attract a lot of attention, and a large number of likes and shares. Again, the effect was greater when the plank went wrong or when it was done in a particularly daring or unusual location. This led to people attempting to plank in more and more surreal or hazardous locations. There were numerous minor accidents, the videos of which were, in some cases, more popular than pictures of successful attempts at planking. Many photographs and videos were shared via Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, but there also existed independent sites designed to share, collate, rate, and review interesting attempts at planking. As time went on, at least 2 young people suffered severe injury after falling while attempting to plank. The first was an 18-year-old Italian boy who fell from the roof of a building onto an awning and from there onto the ground, a total fall of 10 meters or about 39 feet. The impact caused trauma to his spleen that ultimately necessitated its removal, leaving him at higher risk of infection and illness for the rest of his life. The second was a 17-year-old American boy who fell from a second-floor balcony, landing on his back after a fall of 7 meters or about 23 feet. Though he survived and recovered, one of his kidneys had to be removed due to a hemorrhage. It was 2011, however, before planking would result directly in a fatality. In the early hours of the 15th of May 2011, 20-year-old Australian man Acton Beale and a friend were returning from a night out in Brisbane. On their way home, they planked in several places for their own amusement. Acton had been introduced to the idea of planking just a week before by a friend who was a member of the Brisbane Planking Association Facebook group. On that occasion, he had engaged in planking in a local park and found the experience enjoyable and amusing. The Brisbane Planking Association Facebook group, like most Facebook groups dedicated to planking, recommended that people planked safely and sensibly, but at the same time had posted pictures of people planking on balconies and in precarious positions before. Acton Beale and his friend got back to a 7th floor unit in Kangaroo Point in Brisbane. At around 4:30 a.m, Acton attempted to plank on the balcony railing of the unit. In the process of doing so, he lost his balance and fell to the ground below. Emergency services were called, but despite working on Acton for 20 minutes, were unable to save his life. He died at the scene, the first death that could be directly linked to planking as an activity. The next day, another prominent planking accident was reported by Australian news outlets. Simon Hallam, a 20-year-old plasterer from Inverell in New South Wales, was out with friends, planking in various locations. Witnesses report that he was attempting to plank on the back of a moving car when he fell and landed on the road. The fall resulted in serious injuries that required Simon to be placed in an induced coma. Doctors said that his injuries were severe and that they could not be sure that he would ever fully recover. The driver of the car was arrested and charged with dangerous driving. After some investigation, witnesses disagreed on whether Simon had been attempting to plank or to car surf, an activity which involves standing on top of a moving car rather than lying flat. Whatever the reason for the accident, it was generally reported as an accident as a result of planking. 2 high-profile accidents in as many days generated a great deal of media interest. Most of it focused on the perception that planking as a craze was out of control and unsafe. As news of these accidents was reported around the world, numerous attempts were made to ban or restrict planking. Although there were suggestions in some countries, including Australia, that planking should be made illegal, this was considered impractical and impossible to enforce. Instead, irresponsible planking was generally punished using existing public nuisance laws or by private institutions. In New York, an employee of the video game retailer GameStop was fired from a job he had held for 4 years after pictures of him planking in his workplace were posted on Twitter. Although the shop appeared to be empty at the time, GameStop alleged that he had taken the pictures whilst on duty and that posting them amounted to gross negligence. He was therefore denied unemployment benefits following his dismissal. In the UK, 7 employees in the Accident and Emergency Department of the Great Western Hospital in Swindon were suspended for planking while at work. They faced disciplinary action after photographs of them planking on the floor of the hospital were posted on Facebook. Their actions were not considered to pose a physical danger to themselves or others, but rather to be unprofessional and in breach of rules relating to infection prevention and control. In Australia, police charged 3 men with a public nuisance-related offence after they were seen attempting to plank on top of a moving vehicle in the city of Toowoomba in Queensland. They were issued with on-the-spot fines, while the driver of the vehicle was required to attend court on charges of dangerous driving. Around the world, many more people were fined, injured, or lost their jobs as a result of planking. Interest in planking as an activity peaked in 2011 and declined swiftly thereafter. Other crazes gained popularity, and planking-related stories stopped regularly appearing in the news. Over time, the popularity of planking declined dramatically. The life cycle of the planking craze of 2011 was a short one, but it had several things in common with other crazes that have ultimately resulted in death or injury. In particular, the sharing of images on social media, incentivizing more and more dramatic pictures and stunts. Planking, as invented by a pair of British schoolboys in 2007 or a group of Australian friends in 2008, or as a prank by a group of high school kids in 1984, is essentially a harmless activity. An odd, absurd prank that small groups of people have been enjoying for generations. In the internet age, however, this and other pranks have the potential to accelerate to a degree that can be dangerous or, in rare instances, even deadly.